Hi everyone. This week is we're talking about chapter 19 and chapter 20. Chapter 19 was a very short chapter about rhythm, tempo, and pace, but I did have a lot of takeaways from it. My first takeaway was from the section Scott Shattuck observes, and he talked about having actors slow down their rate of speech and pick up their cues. I found this to be really important. One, because it's something that I do, like I already do this with my students, but I didn't, realize that how important it was. And then he talks about how that's important and that, we don't want to have a lot of pauses between dialogue. And that's something that personally, as an audience member, I notice, and I find it to just kind of kill the whole production when there are those silences between lines where there shouldn't be. So that's something I really work on with my students. So hopefully I do it the right way. I'm not sure. But anyway, that was a big takeaway for me. My second takeaway from the chapter was when they talk about audience interest diminishing whenever the production takes on a repetitive sameness. Again, I thought that was really interesting. I had never really thought about it, but it makes a lot of sense. And so trying to make sure that I don't have that repetitive sameness throughout my production and make sure that I am working on that during rehearsals. The last takeaway from that chapter was on the play's rhythms, working on rhythms before even rehearsals begin, and then experimenting with pacing, watching for repetitiveness. And then I just thought, as a new director, this is something that I haven't thought of before, but it's something I really need to think about a lot because it's so important. And having so much to think about can be overwhelming, but I think this is something really important that it doesn't seem like, to me, it didn't seem like a big deal, but after reading this chapter, I realized that it is a big deal. So that was my takeaway from chapter 19. Chapter 20 was about problem solving with working with actors. A lot of good information here. The first takeaway I talked about was from the section rehearsals seem stale. And he talks about actors having not worked on characterization since the last rehearsal. This may be caused by the director's failures to set goals. So for me, this was really like an aha moment because I need to make sure that I am setting goals and giving goals to each actor every single rehearsal, and then not just giving goals, but following up on them at the next rehearsals and talking about them and then setting new goals. So I think that's something really important that I need to remember every time that we have rehearsals. The next takeaway for me from that chapter was about the performers not connecting. This is something, specifically, I have a couple actors that it made me think about who, I have this one girl, and every time she's saying her lines, she's looking at me instead of looking at her scene partner. And so that's something I'm always telling her, like, you need to look at her. You're talking to her. You're not talking to me. Don't look at me. She's looking at me for approval, I guess. And so that's something like I'm always working on with her. So obviously that's very apparent that she's not listening to her scene partner. And so just having those conversations with them about listening to each other authentically. And then I like the idea of using trust exercises during warm-ups. And also having them repeat each other's lines back to each other as a listening exercise. I really like both of those ideas. I'm going to use those. My last takeaway was from when the cast seems indifferent. And this last paragraph in the section advises actors, advises how to show actors that you're serious and committed to rehearsal. So I really like this because it's good advice for me, that I need to be on time and well prepared. I need to continue to experiment with new ideas and never stop suggesting ways for actors to improve, because I need to remember that, the actors want to improve. That's their goal. That's why they're there. And so those were big takeaways for me, and also setting higher goals for myself. So overall, this chapter was really, really helpful. And overall, the book I found was super helpful. And I love the book, and I will be using this book probably forever. So Again, that was short chapters this week, and that's it. So thanks, guys. Have a good week.